Hello, good day everyone. As a requirement for our subject purpose communication, we are presenting today our technical analysis paper. Our topic, maternal feminism, roles of women and their voices in the family and society, based on the text The Road to Aras-asan. The members of this study are me, Zaid Artiaga,
Crisame Boiser.
Kyle Macaraeg.
and Miles Quinones.
presenting to you the executive summary of this study. So this paper provides an analysis on Rebecca Alawi's road to Aras-asan, focusing on the issue of the roles of mothers in the family and their contribution to the decision for the welfare of the family. The paper utilizes gender criticism as a literary analytical approach at Elaine Showalter's 1960 critical analysis three stage the three stages of feminism. So it also tackles the issues of gender dominance, mother identity, and fulfillment, and feminist identity and the fulfillment of the feminist identity in the society. In addition to that, it provides an inputs analysis about how the narrative was presented to convey a story to the readers. Next. As an introduction, as we all know, the perspectives of the Filipino women and the roles they played in various historical circumstances mirrored the character of the times and defined the essence of their struggle. The women's movement in the Philippines has generated great gains in economic, political, and social equality. A paper published by Gallup in 2017 entitled Towards a Better Future for Women in Work, Voices of Women and Men, a faster gender equality and empowerment women not only for the sake of women but for the good of all mankind. Now, Voices of Women and Men, according to Compton, stipulated the importance of the feminine role in the society by stating that the world needs to foster gender equality and empower women, not only for the sake of women, but this is also for the good of mankind, and gender supremacy and the role of women deals with the portrayal of the importance of feminine sex not only in the family, but also in consideration of their contribution to the society. Management and leader positions can be related to the importance of the role of women not only in the professional field but also on the pillars of the family at home. In line with this paper, analysis of Rebecca Alawi's Road to Aras Asan on the discussion on the focus issue of maternal feminism and the voice of women in the case of the study or the story of the mother as one of the heads of the family. So the text revolves around tackling the present issues in the society, like lack of proper infrastructure in the setting of the story, which is in Mindanao, but it also focuses on the struggles of a mother and her sacrifices to deliver her role in providing emotional and moral support for her family, especially for her son, that despite the struggles she and her companions have encountered throughout their journey, she was able to bring her complete family to attend the wedding of one of their members. Next. Next present speaker.
For the methodology, okay, next slide, please. This paper will be focusing on feminism and the women's movement in the Philippines as it faces new obstacles at the dawn of the administration and the changing circumstances of the moment. This will be given emphasis by utilizing Elaine Showalter's gender critique of literature, which aims to reveal the patriarchal premises and the resulting prejudices to encourage the development of and reevaluation of women's literature. So Showalter observes that literary subcultures tend to pass through three stages. First is the imitation of the modes of the dominant tradition and internalization of the artistic and social values. Second is protest against these standards and values and a call for autonomy. And third is self discovery, turning inward free from some of the dependency of opposition or a search for identity. Viewing the women's literary tradition in terms of these phases, Showalter calls the first phase as feminine or a phase of imitation, The second phase as the feminist or the phase of protest when women won voting rights, and the third and final phase as the female phase when women entered a new phase of self awareness. To further understand, Showalter points out that although women, since the beginning, have shared a covert solidarity with other women and their female audience, there was no expressive communality or self awareness present. This means that even during the feminine phase, women did not see their works or actions as an expression of their female experiences. Meanwhile, the feminist phase denotes political involvement. Women questioned the stereotypes and challenged the restriction of women's language. They embodied a declaration of independence in the female tradition and stood up to the male establishment in an outspoken manner or challenging the monopoly of the male. Lastly, the female phase was marked by courageous self exploration and a return to more realistic modes of expression. Now, for the analysis and discussions of this paper, three events from the story were chosen and evaluated from a formalistic point of view and on the perspective of Showalter. The first event is the groom's mother's journey as she traveled all the way to Aras Asan, where she reveals her difficulties and experiences as a mother. The narration in the story shows the will of the speaker to fulfill her role as a mother to her children, to her son, whom she supported with making decisions, including big ones like getting married with someone who lives far away and even accepting the cultural differences between their families. Uh, Next slide. It's as if her way of letting her children know that, like their father, she is also capable of guiding them and be with them as they move on to the next stage of their life. Ay, pakibalik na lang sa previous slide. The first stage or the feminine level is evident in this scenario, since this phase is where women become submissive to dominant culture or dominant tradition and social values. The speaker, the mother, follows these characteristics initially in the story and are supported, I mean, by the following excerpts. So I rude, giving in to my son's urgings that we should catch any bus that came along. Second is, we had to get past the area before dark, and so we found ourselves stoically enduring the nightmare ride. And third is, for the next 3 hours, I keep craning my neck for a sight that would make the heart less forlorn. So these lines show how difficult the journey was and how she was able to endure it for her beloved son. So next slide.
The next event in the story that embodies the face of Showalter's stage of feminism is the Filipino tradition paman. It is a custom where a man and his family pays a visit to his bride to be family and discuss the wedding and the future plans of the couple. Before the occurrence of this event, the speaker and his son went through a long trip which she describes as nightmare ride, suggesting her unwillingness, yet she conforms to the custom. Later on, the bride's family hands out an invitation and there were which led to conflict arising between the groom's family members. This can be supported with these lines from the story. There was a realignment of forces. My husband and the daughters raged against my son, whom they had for the last. By my son's predicament aroused by maternal instinct and made me up the cudgels of the underdog. The end result of a criminalizing confrontations was my husband's declaration that he was not going with me to Aras Asad for the wedding. Besides, I shot back with the it was he who first place made the concession and now he was suffering for the failure of checking it out. Feels and my husband was replayed out in icy silence and so on. This time, the speaker underwent the second phase of feminism. Next slide, please. This time, the speaker underwent the second phase or the feminism phase. She lashes out at her husband, furious about his refusal to go along with the wedding. The speaker calls for autonomy with the family. To be more specific, she is fighting for her authority as parent, as equals with her husband. The speaker's motherhood, her role as confident and unconditional supporter, is being threatened by the husband whose values are influenced by religious culture and opposition against Catholic rights. Viewed in artistic standpoint, the mother is protesting not only against the inequalities between the roles of fatherhood and motherhood in the words of patriarch's dominance, but also religious limitations that they themselves follow. And finally, the speaker protests against her husband's inconsiderate rejection of their son's wedding, bears fruit the realization, and as it dawns into the speaker's stream of consciousness, thus reaching the last phase, the female phase, the speaker realizes the happiness of a child is also a mother's happiness. In that sense, the fulfillment of her son's desire was what fulfilled the speaker. This can be supported by the following lines in the story were vividly described as in front of her. The children were frolicking, leaping into the air, splashing one another with shimmering blue of the Pacific. And then one scene had transfixed newlyweds holding hands, treating water with a riot of colors in the background. I would not mind finding myself on the road to Arasasan again, but with the same joke and like-minded company, of course. This gratifying experience made her discover the joy and purpose of a mother, and that is to see through her children's happiness in her female face. She has autonomy within her home as a mother figure and realizes her innate drive of motherly love. Next.
Conclusion. First is after applying Showalter's three phases of feminism, where maternal feminism has been illuminated, a certain interference can be inferred that any women, particularly mothers in the family, often has their phases in which they struggle inside themselves to reach a point where they can agree and understand that their voices are significant in the household of a family and in the community. The first phase, in the first phase where the speaker had the responsibility of traveling to her son's wedding, motherhood can be referred to on the on on the one hand as a social entity where all mothers are under social obligation to stick to their children's social status as mothers, as a critical emotion experience, as a normal and divine. It seems like the concept of motherhood, usually in all social contexts, marginalizes the concept of motherhood, and much of the time it is assumed that women are exempt from decision making on different matters. The second phase, she revolted against her husband. It can be seen in a different way. There was a paradigm change in the perception of motherhood as presented by the feminists. They can they have now come to see it as a whole and rewarding biological experience. It is apparent for a mother, considering the hardships that she endured physically and mentally. She respects her children's decision without reservation. This led to the unfolding of new ideas on motherhood, which has now come to be seen as a special human experience that exalts and elevates the disposition and status of a woman rather than restricting her to a patriarchal instrument meant to be silenced and suppressed. To sum up, it is important to free motherhood from fetters of dominance and male supremacy so it can grow and bloom as an instinctual, inherent maternal experience. The richness of material experience has become an integral part of a woman's life and has imparted exuberance and richness to her maternal knowledge. Tapos na bro. Next na.